Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to the first day of official Battlebond previews. We have a lot of great cards to recap here. A really powerful reprint, as you can see from the title card here. Some new Planeswalkers to look at, a lot going on. I want to get started pretty quick. But just real fast reminder before we do begin, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support what we do here at the channel, one of which is our Patreon page that's down below. You'll also find some links to products on Amazon. If you make any purchases on Amazon, actually, no matter what it is, we'll get a small percentage for the channel if you go through that link. And then finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. And as a matter of fact, they have some exclusive Richard Kane Ferguson playmats. If you're a fan of like old school Legends cards or Commander, you may want to check those out. They are pretty sweet. As always, thank you not only to the viewers that look at those links, but to all the viewers. Y'all make the channel what it is. And without any further ado, let's get into it. Why not start off big? I'm not talking one brand new Planeswalker here, two brand new Planeswalkers. These were revealed today by the professor at Tolarian Community College and Wedge from the Mana Source. These both have the partner with ability, which we talked about on Friday. I'll give you a quick recap here as well. What you need to know about partner with is simply, if you have both of these in your deck, if you cast one, you get to tutor for the other. If you're playing Two-Headed Giant, for example, and you have one in your deck and your partner has the other, if you cast yours, they get to tutor for theirs and vice versa, which is actually pretty cool. These are always tied together. Now, you may say to yourself, well, if I'm playing Two-Headed Giant, well, how can I ensure that we'll get both of these cards between me and my partner? Well, they will always come in the booster pack together. They will never be separate. So if you open this, congratulations. You open the other one, you got a 2 mythic booster pack. That's pretty sweet. Now, the other thing you need to know about these partner with cards is they jointly can be your commander if you're playing Commander. And because it says at the bottom of the card that this particular Planeswalker can be your commander for both of them, then that does allow this card to be used as your commander. Now, any legendary creature that partners, same rules apply. Together, they can be a joint commander for you. They cannot, however, partner with other cards. They can only partner with each other when it comes to commander purposes. So in other words, these two can be my joint commanders, but Will Kenrith and another card from this set that has partner with somebody else, they can't. Or I can't mix and match the old partner cards from the past with the new ones. These can only partner with their respective partner. Okay, hopefully that clears all of that up. Let's talk about the cards themselves. Will Kenrith, 2 blue and 4, legendary Planeswalker. Will, 4 loyalty. Of course, it's a mythic. +2. Until your next turn, up to 2 target creatures each have base power and toughness 0/3 and lose all abilities. -2. Target player draws 2 cards. Until your next turn, instant, sorcery, and Planeswalker spells that player casts cost 2 less to cast. -8. Target player gets an emblem with, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You can choose new targets for the copy. And like I said before, this can be your commander, and also this partners with Rowan Kenrith. Let's look at Rowan, then we'll talk about them together. Rowan Kenrith, 2 red and 4, legendary Planeswalker, Rowan, mythic, 4 loyalty +2. During target player's next turn, each creature that player controls attacks if able, -2. This will deal 3 damage to each tapped creature target player controls. -8, each player gets an emblem with, whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. Of course, this can be your commander and partners with Will Kenrith. Okay, a lot to unpack there. First off, these will not be legal in Standard or Modern because these are from a supplemental set, so you don't have to worry about any of those interactions. However, they will be legal in Vintage and Legacy, although with that casting cost and these abilities, they're not going to do a whole lot there. The big question is, would I play these in Commander? Yeah, I think I would, just because they feel like they'd be a lot of fun in an Izzet deck with a lot of instants and sorceries and some good activated abilities. Now, are they hyper-competitive Commander cards? No. This is something, though, that if I'm playing a little more casually and want to have some fun, I think these could be a good time. I mean, just the uniqueness of having 2 Planeswalkers as your commander, that's kind of cool on its own, and the abilities work very well between each other. Like Will's +2 can make a couple creatures 0/3. Rowan's +2 can force them to attack, so perhaps they're vulnerable and can be destroyed at that point. The -2 that Will has can be played not only in yourself, but other players if you want to play a little bit of a political game. And that's true of a lot of the cards we're going to look at today. I won't say that every time, but remember, if you're playing Commander, because these are designed to be able to play with teammates, there are some ways to benefit other players at the table and just kind of play some politics, which can be a lot of fun too in those games. So ultimately, I really like what they did with the design here. And remember, if you happen to pull these in Battlebond Limited, yeah, I think they could be very powerful in that environment. Okay, we have another pair of cards with partner, and these came from Rich Hagon and BDM today on Twitter, which was kind of cool. The first one is Virtus the Veiled. It costs a black and 2 legendary creature, Ezra Assassin. It's a rare 1/1. Partners with Gorm the Great. Has Death Touch, and whenever this deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. Gorm the Great. Green and 3 legendary creature, Giant Warrior, rare 2/7. Partners with Virtus the Veiled, has Vigilance, and must be blocked if able, and must be blocked by 2 or more creatures if able. So basically, Gorm runs the interference so Virtus can get the damage across. And the casting cost being relatively cheap on these cards means they could come out pretty quickly. So I do feel like these could be really powerful in a limited environment if everything kind of lines up well for you. They're not as flashy as those last cards we looked at, sure, but I do feel like they could get the job done from time to time. And I would be happy to play these in that Battlebond limited environment, no doubt. Aside from that, would I play these in Commander? It's an interesting combination. The reason I would consider it is because they're cheap. That Virtus the Veiled coming out for 3. A lot of times people in Commander are still setting up, playing Mana Rocks and such on turn 3. You might be able to surprise somebody with something like this. Aside from that, I don't know if the power level generally makes me feel like I need to play these two as my commander or anything like that. They're interesting cards, they're kind of fun, but I do feel like there's a lot more powerful things going on in that environment. Again, I love the design though. This next pair was previewed by Reed and Ian Duke. This is Soulblade Corruptor, which partners with Soulblade Renewer. Notice though these are not legendary, so they cannot be your commander. The Corruptor costs a black and 4. It has Death Touch 3/3 Human Warrior. Both of these are uncommon. Whenever a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks one of your opponents, that creature gains Death Touch until end of turn. The Renewer, a green and 4 Elf Warrior, 2/2. Whenever this enters the battlefield, support 2. Okay, so there's a lot happening here. First, you see support is back, and we last saw that mechanic in Oath of the Gatewatch not too long ago. Good mechanic for the set, since you can put the counters on any creature, which would include your teammates. It does appear to tie in with green, black, and maybe white as well, and you'll notice as we go through the cards today. And on top of that, these are warriors, and there's definitely a warrior tribal theme, and you're going to notice that as well as we go through some of the cards later on. Aside from that, these cards on their own I think are actually pretty good for limited. They're a little expensive at 5 when you first glance at them. However, you got to remember they're tutoring the other one up. So when you think of it that way, like that first one, for example, a 3/3 Death Touch creature that costs 5, but I get to tutor the Renewer, and maybe next turn that becomes a 4/4 and the Renewer's a 3/3, something like that. They complement each other pretty well, but they are decent creatures on their own. Another thing to point out about Corruptor, it doesn't have to be your creature with a counter attacking to get Death Touch. It's any time a creature with a counter attacks one of your opponents. That makes sense, obviously, for Two-Headed Giant, considering you'll have a teammate, but also has implications for multiplayer games like Commander, where people could just be attacking each other. It could be completely irrelevant to you. However, this card will be impacting the combat. I find that kind of interesting. There's some other cards we're going to see today that do similar things. As far as Commander goes, would I play these cards here? Probably not just out of the blue. But if I had a reason to, like maybe I have a warrior tribal build, I might consider it. Alright, these next two were previewed by LSV and Paul Cheon on Twitter today. This is Proud Mentor and Impetuous Protege. And these are uncommons as well. They also are not legendary, so you can't use these as commanders. But the Proud Mentor is a white and 2 human warrior, 1/1. You can pay a white, tap, and tap target creature. The Protege is a red and 2 human warrior, 0/4. Whenever this attacks, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among tapped creatures your opponents control. Which, first off, I have to say, I like the fact that it has 4 toughness, because I get really tired of these red cards that end up being like 8/1 or something, and they get blocked by a 1/1 or a 2/2, and they just don't really do anything. This has a little bit of toughness behind it, and I do like that. And these cards work fantastic together. The fact of the matter is, whichever one you play, it costs you 3, and you get a decent creature, plus you're tutoring the other. That's actually kind of awesome for the economy here. And it could lead to some big plays like in a Boros aggro build, for example. And you know what? In a vacuum, tapping down an opponent's creature for just 1 white and tapping the Mentor is not bad on its own either. I even considered for a moment if I would think about running this in a Boros build in Legacy, maybe some kind of aggro deck. And I don't know, maybe it's not fast enough there, but I at least considered it, and I think that's saying something. Now, in Limited, this is going to be awesome for you. This will be a fantastic combination if you pick it up. And I do think it is playable in Commander. Again, these are warriors. So that's going to have implications not only in the limited game, but also if you happen to play Warrior Tribal. Dwarven Lightsmith. White and 5. This one is a Dwarf Cleric, 3/4 common with assist. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And when this enters the battlefield, creatures your team controls get +1/+1 till end of turn. Okay, so the assist mechanic will allow you to select another player and perhaps give them the opportunity to use their mana to help you cast a spell, which there could be different reasons they may want to do that. Now, the good news is, I reveal the spell first, I choose all the targets, and then I select the person that I want to help me. If they choose not to help me, nothing bad happens to me. I just put the spell back in my hand, no harm, no foul. However, if they decide to help, they can pay part of the mana cost. Now, I'm still responsible always for the color portion. In this case, I have to pay the 1 white. But the other person can contribute up to 5 generic mana, just depending on how much they have available or what they want to contribute. So if they contribute 1, then you only have to pay a white and 4. If they do 2, then a white and 3, so on. Obviously, this mechanic works best in two-headed giant situations, because the way these cards are costed, if you're playing them on your own, they're not very economical. But if you're going like half and half with someone, they can be extremely economical. In Commander games where it's everyone for themselves, then to get someone to help you out, you may have to play a little bit of politics. And this particular card might not be the best example because you can't really help anyone else out other than maybe say, I'm going to attack the person you want me to attack. But this doesn't really give them something tangible. Some other assist cards will, though. We're going to see that in a few moments. Ultimately, I really like this design too. I think this could be a lot of fun, not only in two-headed giant games, but multiplayer Commander. These could also be some powerful swingy plays, I think, in the Battlebond limited environment. Let's talk about this card on its own for a moment. I mean, sizable creature is fine, but more importantly, all creatures that you and your teammate control get +1/+1 till end of turn. That could be a big play, especially if you have a lot of small creatures. And we don't know what the set looks like yet and how easy or hard it is going to be to go wide in the limited environment. But, I mean, white usually has a lot of options for that, so this could be very good. Play of the game. 2 white and 6, another assist card here. Exile all non-land permanents. Very simple. This one is a rare. Now, in team play, yes, if you and your teammate are falling behind, this is an awesome panic button. Between the two of you, you could cast this relatively early if things aren't going your way, and maybe stabilize and make a comeback. Commander, yeah, you could play this on your own. I think the 8 mana is very affordable in that format, and the exile can be very relevant. So I think it's a fine card to use there, although there's other cards that do similar things. The fact that maybe if you and another player start falling behind, or one person really starts to pull ahead quickly, you could play that political game again and get this to happen earlier, so it does leave you with some good options. Huddle Up. Blue and 2. Sorcery, common, assist. 2 target players each draw a card. So I was alluding to this earlier. Here's a card that actually has a tangible upside for someone who may want to go in on the price. As a matter of fact, it's actually better for them than it is for you, because you're playing this and you're just replacing the card, where they are actually drawing a card. So granted, they may pay 2 or they may pay 1, but you actually are helping someone else out. Perfect, again, for two-headed giant. This is fantastic there. Sorcery speed, which, okay, maybe it's a little slow, but you know what? You're replacing this card and they're drawing a whole new one for just 3 mana between the two of you. I think that's just fine. And when it comes to something like Commander, I don't know if I really play it there. I like the politics behind this card. It could be fun, but obviously there's better ways to draw cards in Commander, just generally. Soaring Show Off. Blue and 2, Bird Warrior. This one's a common 2/2 with flying. And when this enters the battlefield, each player draws a card. When it comes to two-headed giant, this might be a little awkward for some decks, because I don't know if you want your opponents drawing cards too. It just depends on your build. I get a little nervous with reciprocal effects generally, because I want to make sure they're going to help my deck more than they're going to help the opponent's decks in most situations. And remember, when you play two-headed giant, there's no sideboarding and there's no second game or anything like that. So you kind of have to be all in and really confident that your deck's going to do more with those extra cards than your opponent's decks are going to do. So you're going to want to be relatively aggressive if you play a card like this with a low mana curve. When it comes to Commander, this is a great Pillow Fort edition, no doubt. Archriend of Despair, 2 black and 6, Demon. This one's a mythic with flying, 6/6. Your opponents can't gain life. At the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. Damage causes loss of life. Wow, okay, there's a lot going on here. Now, it costs 8, so it's not the cheapest card in the world. It's going to take you some time to get there. But once you get there, this thing has a big presence on the battlefield, and your opponent or opponents are going to have to deal with this. If they don't, they're going to probably be losing the game. If you attack in with this, it's kind of like doing 12 damage if it actually connects. It's going to do 6, and then at the end step, do another 6 to them. That is pretty devastating if it does get by. They just can't let it happen. Or if it can't get by for some reason, you just have a lot of other small creatures and you can go wide, just a little damage all of a sudden adds up to a lot of damage. This works well with burn spells too, if you happen to have some of those. The most interesting part of this card, though, is how it works in multiplayer games. Notice it says each opponent loses life based on what they've already lost that turn. However, if you can deal damage to multiple players, wonderful, I mean that's value. But where it gets really crazy is this works even if your opponents are damaging each other. So that extra damage or that extra life loss will actually happen even if you're not involved. I think that's actually pretty sweet for Commander. We don't know what the limited game is going to look like, but it's pretty safe to say that this card is just going to be really good if you do come across it. It is a mythic, you won't see it a lot, but when you do, this could be very, very powerful. It is important to note that in two-headed giant games, the way the rules are set up, if you hit your opponents with this, they're going to take 6 damage, and then the person that took the actual damage themselves will lose another 6. So the team will lose 12 altogether. There was some confusion around this card. I noticed that on message boards. Some people thought it was 18 damage. It actually would be 12, just the way the rules are set up. Just good to know. Fan favorite, black and 3, 2/2 with assist. This one is a human rogue, common. And it has an activated ability of 2. Fan favorite gets +2/+2 until end of turn, but any player may activate this ability. So again, for commander purposes, you can play the political game here. If someone's pulling ahead, you attack in. Other people can contribute to the size of the creature during the combat. I like that. See what I mean here by the economy. This doesn't feel amazing for 4, considering it's a 2/2 and it costs 2 to pump until end of turn. But if I play this on turn 2, it just feels a whole lot better. Mindblade Render, a black and 1, Ezra Warrior. This is a rare 1/3. Whenever your opponents are dealt combat damage, if any of that damage was dealt by a warrior, you draw a card and you lose a life. I like the wording here because basically if I'm in a commander game that's multiplayer and someone with a warrior attacks somebody else, I still get the trigger if the damage connects. So that's kind of awesome. And maybe not good if I'm at 1 life or something like that. Could backfire, I suppose. But most of the time, I'll be really happy about that. Also good in the team environment, of course, if you're playing Two-Headed Giant Limited. You could play this with no warriors, and maybe your teammate has warriors in their deck. You still get some advantage. It's also a nice blocker for 2 against more aggro builds. And I don't feel bad, considering, again, you don't get the sideboard opportunities in this particular format. If I put this in my deck and my opponent's playing a really slow deck, well, okay, because the trigger ability is still awesome. So this card's actually really good for 2 mana. And I could see myself running this definitely in a warrior build in Commander, no doubt. I think it would be fantastic there. This next card comes to us from a Japanese language preview. Loosely translated, it's Surprising Comeback, a black and 3 instant. If you would lose the game this turn, instead draw 7 cards and your life total becomes 1. Exile Surprising Comeback. I do want to warn you right now, the translation on this still feels a little bit loose, and just one little word could change this card quite a bit. So we're going by what we have right now. Tomorrow we should get the official English translation, so we'll definitely know for sure how this card works. But at least what it looks like right now is this is a way to, if you're about to lose the game, you kind of prevent that, go to 1 life, and you draw 7 cards. One of the questions people have had already is how does that work when it comes to a team game like Two-Headed Giant? Well, basically, you are sharing a life total, but if you're going to lose the game, and that could be because something's happening to you, or something's happening to your opponent, or your shared life total, then yes, you are losing the game, and you can play this, draw the 7 cards, your combined life total goes back to 1. Only you would draw the 7 cards because you are the one casting the spell. Your partner will not draw anything. If I don't have a teammate, it works the same way. I'm about to die, I play this, I draw a whole new hand of cards, and go to 1 life, and hopefully I can make a surprising comeback based on whatever I drew off the top of my deck. I guess the only thing you might want to consider is it worth it to play a card that does absolutely nothing unless you're basically about to lose the game? Now, it is a big play. Obviously, in a format like Commander, drawing 7 cards, they could be very powerful cards. But I don't know if that's enough for me to run this typically, and I don't really think setting up a situation where I'm about to lose the game just to draw 7 cards is the most efficient thing I could be doing either. Now, this doesn't protect you against everything. In fact, commander damage, for example, those are ways to lose to state-based effects. You can put it off for just a moment, but the next time the game checks for state-based effects, you're going to lose anyway. So it's not going to really help you there, but there's a lot of things it does protect you against. As a matter of fact, I think this is one of the more interesting mythics that I've seen in a while. Charging Binox, a green and 7 beast, common 7/5 with assist and trample. Again, I don't want to pay 8 for a 7/5 trample, but if I pay 4 for it, that actually feels pretty awesome. This could be good for you in limited Battlebond environments. I don't really see myself playing this in Commander. It would be a hard sell, I think, to try to get someone to help me cast this. Pier's Whim, a green and 3, sorcery rare. For each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend searches their library for a land card, puts it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffles. Each foe sacrifices an artifact or enchantment they control. I like the fact that this card does allow you to search up a land to put it in the battlefield. Even though it is tapped, it can be any land. It doesn't have to be a basic land. So you can pull some lands that do have different abilities attached to them. That's actually pretty awesome, especially in Commander. Again, the political games kind of come into play here a little bit. You're going to let people search for a land, or you're going to make them sacrifice an artifact or enchantment, which there are plenty available in the world of Commander. On one hand, that might not hurt them that much. I mean, they might have a mana rock they can just pitch or something like that. But just generally, I think the difference between choosing someone to be a friend or a foe could ultimately just change the direction of the game a little bit. And I think that's actually kind of cool for 4 mana. 2-Headed Giant, yeah, this will be really good for you there. I like this type of spell in that environment because I can spend 4 mana and get myself another land and get my partner another land. My partner could still have another play that impacts the battlefield. So we're not taking the turn off necessarily. Granted, it's a little different because you do have 2 opponents. I mean, they both could be playing a creature and you might only be playing 1 creature and doing this. But it could set you up for a big next turn, especially if you need to color fix or ramp a little bit. And that's not even mentioning that your opponents may have to sacrifice 1 or 2 things. Rushblade Commander, black and red, Azra Warrior, 2/2, uncommon. Warriors your team controls have haste. So obviously there's a warrior theme going on here, which could come into play in draft especially, even sealed to some degree perhaps. This is also a 2/2 haste creature on its own for 2 mana. Even though it's 2 different colors, that could still be pretty good in an aggressive build generally. And outside the limited environment here in Battlebond, if you're playing Commander and you're a fan of warriors, yeah, this fits into a warrior deck for sure. Okay, those are all the new cards that we saw today, but we did see a number of reprints. So we're going to go through these a little bit quicker since you're probably familiar with most of them. Doom Traveler is the first one. I always love this card in Limited. It's very annoying, especially if you put it out turn 1 and your opponent eventually gets rid of it or you chump block with it. Now you got a little flyer. It's just really, really annoying and hard to deal with sometimes. Expedition Raptor, another support card. This particular one is good because it's a 5 casting cost 2/2 flyer. But you are actually getting 4/4 power and toughness for 5 most of the time, with at least 2 of that in the air. That's not bad at all, especially considering you're spreading out the power and toughness a little bit so it doesn't get destroyed by 1 removal spell. Shoulder to Shoulder, another one of these cards that have support. This time it's a sorcery, but it does cantrip, which is nice. Kraken Hatchling. Yeah, this one is great if you want to gum up the ground. So again, you don't have a sideboard situation here because these games only last 1 game and limited. But if you feel like you're doing something a little more slower, methodical, you're concerned about losing a lot of life in the early turns, it's a good card to run. Peregrine Drake is back again. Back at uncommon too. It was a common in Eternal Masters and had to be banned in Pauper as a matter of fact. Now, if you played with this in Eternal Masters, you know this can be quite a strong play. I mean, 2/3 flyer for 5, and then you untap your lands and either hold back counter magic or just play another creature. That's typically what I did, just played 2 creatures, really pulled ahead of curve. That can be very, very strong. And the fact that you don't have to just untap your lands in this situation, you could also be untapping your partner's lands or an opponent's lands if you choose to. Hey, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but if there's a reason to do it, maybe you do it. And it just gives you a lot of flexibility. It's not basic lands either. I mean, it could be non-basic lands with abilities. Really good card to pick up here for sure in a draft. Dagger-Drome Imp. This isn't exciting on its own. I mean, a 1/1 flying lifelink for 2 is not where you want to be. But if you have a lot of the support cards, this all of a sudden gets a lot better in the limited game. Doom Dissenter. We saw this not too long ago in Amonkhet. It is similar to Doom Traveler, but the token doesn't fly, even though it is a little larger as a 2/2. This does cost 2 to cast as well, not 1, so it's slightly different, but at the same time, it's still a very persistent creature that you'll be happy to play. Doubling Season, finally reprinted. With brand new art, it looks amazing. Commander players are going to be really happy to see this inclusion. It is a mythic this time. It was originally a rare, of course, because we did not have mythics when it was first printed in the Ravnica block. It did get a printing at Rare and Modern Masters, the first one, but that was a long time ago. I'm not going to complain that this one's a mythic. I'm just happy to see it. It would have been nice at Rare maybe for financial reasons because those older versions of the card, Ravnica, Modern Masters, they're going for around $65 right now. So that's pretty crazy. Now this will help the price. It would have helped more at Rare, but it also probably would have been a tough card to deal with in the limited environment, especially with the support mechanic around. So it is what it is, I suppose. I'm just really happy it's here. Commander, it works with so many cards in the format. It's just fantastic there. And like I said, Two-Headed Giant, this is going to be a powerful pickup if you're lucky enough to see it. Fertile Ground's back again at common still, and this is a fantastic card. It helps you fix color, helps you ramp a little bit, very cheap to cast. Always a good inclusion. Augur Spree. I always liked this card when it was in Return to Ravnica block because you were able to use it as a removal spell a lot of the time, but also sometimes push extra damage across on like a trample creature or something like that. It had nice versatility with a decent casting cost of 3, even though it was 2 different colors. Centaur Healer. I always like these, especially against the aggressive builds. Now, you don't have the option to just side it in, of course, in Two-Headed Giant play if you're up against an aggressive deck. But that's okay, because I feel comfortable main decking this too, being a 3/3 body for 3. Again, 2 different colors, sure, but I feel like it's sizable, and also gaining the 3 life is a nice bonus. Eager Construct. Another reciprocal card. I mean, if you need a 2-drop, it's there for you, or if you feel like, again, your deck's going to benefit a little more from that scry than most opponents' decks would. But a lot of the times I might avoid this one because I get a little nervous, especially if you don't have the sideboard option. You got to win game 1. There's no game 2 or game 3. Those are the preview cards for today, and tomorrow we are going to be back with another video recapping everything that's previewed over the next 24 hours. I'm pretty excited about this set, actually. It reminds me a lot of Conspiracy, which I really enjoyed. I haven't had a chance to play a lot of Two-Headed Giant. I have played a couple times at side events at GPs, and always had a lot of fun. So I do think it's pretty cool that this set is bringing more exposure to that format. But anyway, until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.